What is clear from the text is that the TZARAT of the Torah is a skin disease. And as with skin diseases, one presents oneself with one of a variety of symptoms: the mole, the tag, the clogged pores, the blackhead, that generally are less serious. But then, in more recent time, we have the melanoma, a form of skin cancer. And within the melanoma, there is a wide range of symptoms, ranging from normal skin conditions that present as blemishes and the more serious lesions, that of the melanoma, that can be, if untreated, life-threatening. Detection and identification of the melanoma clearly must be left to the experts. First point of call is the local GP, the general practitioner, who, if necessary, will refer one on to the specialist in cancers of the skin. In ancient times, the separation between religious practitioner and the medical doctor did not exist, and generally one went to the religious leader for guidance in treating a medical condition. In biblical times, that individual was the Kohen, who, it is assumed, would have undertaken specialized courses in the detection of the TZARAT, very much like the general practitioner of today, who would have had to have taken courses that dealt with the different symptoms of melanoma. In contrast to leprosy, the TZARAT, according to Vayikra 13, could present either on the body, or in clothing, or even in the structure of the house in which one lived. 7 situations are discussed in Vayikra 13, beginning with a white spot that appears in the skin. There's also a white blotch, and then a blotch that covers the entire body. Ironically, this third category is not deemed to be TZARAT. Then we have a lesion that remains upon the skin after an infection has been healed. You have a situation where there's a lesion following a burn, a lesion that surfaces in areas that are normally covered by hair, and a lesion that appears upon a bald patch of the skin. Following the 7 categories of the potential TZARAT, Vayikra 13 records the healing process along with the requirement for isolation of the TZARAT sufferer. This mandated isolation lends itself for midrashic commentary on the relationship between the violation of the moral code against speaking Lashon Hara and the consequences in the form of a TZARAT. In the next panel, this link will be elevated from mere midrashic association to a much more formal connection recorded in the Ram Tumat TZARAT. The final segment of the 59 Pasukim of Vayikra, Perek 13, deals with the TZARAT in clothing. As with the TZARAT that presents in the body, there is also a rather complex process for the identification of the TZARAT and the subsequent removal of the TZARAT from the clothing, keeping in mind that in biblical times we did not have access to mass-produced clothing, and hence one did not willy-nilly discard any clothing that was affected by the TZARAT to the rubbish bin. The Gutnik Chumash offers an excellent flowchart of this entire process of identification and treatment. A point that the Rebbe will address in this Sikha is the continuation of the laws dealing with the TZARAT that relate to housing. Perek 14 is linked to Parshat Metzorah, so that between the TZARAT of the clothing and that of the housing there is a break of 32 Pasukim. In the 25 Pasukim, we have 3 subsections. Firstly, the diagnosis of a TZARAT that appears in housing. And thirdly, a tahara process involving 2 birds, a thread made from scarlet wool, a branch from a cedar tree, and a clump of hyssop grass. One of the anomalies that the Rebbe in the Sikha will address relates to the first 32 Pasukim of Vayikra Perek 14, in which we return to the topic of the TZARAT that embeds itself upon the body. In Perek 30, Parashat Tazria, the text provided us with the identification of various types of the TZARAT, the treatment of that TZARAT, and the requirement for isolation. As with the TZARAT that involved a house, there was a tahara process. Similarly, with the TZARAT that attacked the body, we also have a tahara process and a 4th activity, and that is the requirement for an atonement, the bringing of a chatat, and a korban olah. The focus of the Sikha is upon a pasuk in this segment dealing with the TZARAT through which God affects a home. I shall be using the Hebrew reworking of a Sikha first printed in the Likutei Sichot volume 27, which was one of the Yiddish Sichot. In the next panel, I shall digress and note how the Rambam, who in addition to being a Torah scholar was also a highly regarded medical practitioner, how the topic of TZARAT is dealt with in his Yad HaChazakah.